Today's guest is Pete Chase, a veteran entrepreneur whose name is synonymous with innovation and impact in the inland Northwest. Pete is best known for founding Purcell Systems, a company he grew from a local startup into a global telecom player, serving clients like T-Mobile. These days, he's back at it with his latest venture, Easy Street, where he's developing faster, more cost-effective telecom towers to meet the growing demands of modern connectivity. In our conversation, Pete shares his journey from growing up in Kellogg, Idaho, to navigating the highs and lows of building and scaling businesses. We talk about what it takes to survive industry shifts, how to lead with clarity, and why resilience and adaptability are the true markers of an entrepreneur. Whether you're a founder, a startup operator, or someone scaling a fast-growing team, Pete's story is full of insight, cautionary tales, and advice you can take with you. This is the Launchpad Innovators Podcast. I'm Bill Kalivas, and this is my conversation with Pete Chase. Pete Chase, thank you for joining us. I appreciate it.
Great to be here, Bill.
Yeah, it's been a minute since you and I chatted. I know we met back in the original Launchpad days. I think it was 2001, 2002, when you were first, I think, working on Purcell Systems, right? I think that's when we met.
Yeah, that's when we met on the wine and cheese circuit. The
wine and cheese circuit. I had a lot more cheese than wine.
Well, and you'd go to these things, and predictably, after a while, this guy was at the last one, and it's kind of the same group. So
and it's Spokane. It's not a huge community, but you're right. Yeah, you do end up. We did end up running into a lot of the same folks, but
that's changed. I mean, look at all the stuff you guys are doing here in this facility, and Ignite, and I mean, so many of those things didn't exist at that time.
Yeah, and we'll get into that for sure. But for people that have not had the pleasure of meeting you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, a little bit about how you sort of became an entrepreneur, and kind of fill in the gaps a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. Well, like a lot of us, we moved around quite a bit, but I kind of consider my formative years growing up in Kellogg, Idaho. My dad was in mining. He ran the Sunshine Mine there in Kellogg for a number of years, and it was a really interesting experience because you're in a small town and you're trying to fit in with these kids, which is hard when your dad's in management and everyone else is in union. And that's all fine and dandy until there's a strike. And then you don't want to go into the bathroom by yourself at junior high during a strike. You'll get pounded.
Interesting.
So anyway, Kellogg was an interesting experience. So we moved then halfway through high school to Spokane. And my dad sent me to Gonzaga Prep, which was a huge culture shock because it was still all boys at that time, shifted to having the girls in with us the next couple of years. But yeah, that was crazy. I mean, you actually had to do homework, and they had to take Latin and stuff like that, which, people, now I look back on my junior high experience in Kellogg, and it's just, it was like going to Shawshank Junior High compared to the real one. So anyway, it came to Gonzaga Prep, and met some great guys there. Went on to Gonzaga University, and then my dad at the time had a zinc oxide plant out in the Spokane Valley, which I made pretty good money at, which was brutal, but it kept me going to work because he, being an entrepreneur himself, I'd hired a lot of these guys who'd done time, and these guys, they're all nice, they made mistakes or whatever, but anyway, they all encouraged me to keep going to college and finish my degree, so that was kind of early formative experience.
Wow. Okay, let's back up. This is good stuff. So you grew up in Kellogg till high school, then you moved to Spokane. Mm-hmm. I could see where that would be a major change of environment, especially school environment, going from Kellogg to, was it a pretty small were they small schools?
No,
in comparison,
it was huge. It was huge at the time. Mining was big at that time, and so
gotcha.
Kellogg School District took in everything from like the bottom of 4th of July Pass to Wallace almost.
Yeah.
And Wallace had its own school district, but I remember I was at Gonzaga Prep for a couple of weeks, and this friend of mine came up and said, "Gosh, notice you sitting over here. You haven't said anything to anybody." Mm-hmm. And I go, "Well, the school I came from, new guy just gets thrashed. I'm not saying anything." It goes, he invited me to go play basketball and meet some other people. It was just a night and day experience.
Gotcha. So it was a good experience.
Oh, great. Yeah. As it turned out, I mean, kids don't like to move, but that one probably, changed my life.
Good for you. Did you have siblings?
Yeah, I was the youngest of 6.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Same here.
Yeah. Well, it's
Youngest of 6.
yeah. You kind of,
Yeah.
don't speak. Don't speak. Keep everything to yourself. So
No, man, there's a whole hierarchy and lots of stories.
oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, you go back, they ask you what your music tastes are. Well, I inherited all these, albums from the 60s. I don't think, somehow I ended up missing huge chunks of my modern music.
Wow.
So I'll hear a song by someone who's, produced a song 30 years ago. Oh, it's kind of new.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not. It was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Oh, you and I could talk about music a ton. All my brothers, I just totally absorbed all the Led Zeppelin, all the Janis Joplin, all the way back, and kind of, I guess, mid to late 60s is where I really started paying attention.
So my wife and I are going to go see The Who in Seattle coming up, and we saw a little clip of poor, Pete Townshend and the rest of the guys, and geez, they're like in their 80s.
Yeah. Roger Daltrey.
Roger Daltrey's kind of hobbling around out there.
Yeah.
He still can belt it out, but he's
Have
real
you seen some of those videos of Phil Collins, like the recent ones? That one
he
really
didn't age
blew me
well.
away. No, poor guy. So talented. All of those. Yeah. Anyway, so back to you. So you moved to Gonzaga Prep, and you go to Gonzaga University. And I'm sorry, what was your major again?
It meandered around a little bit. I think I heard this phrase once from someone who went there. They said, "Yeah, I got a 4 point, 1 point the first year, 1 point the second year." So I ended up with a marketing degree.
Okay.
But I had, at some point, my dad wanted me in engineering, and that didn't click at all.
Mm-hmm.
Which is funny how I ended up in high tech. But I left there with my marketing degree.
Nice. That's great. And obviously, we know college is such a great place to build connections. And I think we talked briefly before we started that there are people that that from college that you reconnect with, or high school that you reconnect with.
Well, I kind of took a left turn because I got married my sophomore year.
Oh, wow.
It happened when I was 19. I got, this whole story, backstory there.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think, I would like to go, it's funny, if I ever retire, I'd like to go back to college and like really take some of those courses again, just because it would be so much. Pay
attention this time.
Yeah. I had the maturity of a black lab. It was all over the place.
But black labs are adorable, man.
Well, yeah, that'll land you some trouble. But anyway, I got out though. And what's funny is in all my job interviews, I don't think anyone asked me for my grades. I mean, I did better than the 1 point, but
sure.
Still,
you graduated, obviously.
And for that matter, I don't know if anyone asked me for my diploma.
Right.
So anyway.
Right. Different time.
Yeah.
So you graduate, you get married in college, and what was your next step after you graduated?
Well, it's funny because I saw my friends who had accounting and engineering degrees, and they had on-campus recruiters coming in, and guys I knew who had accounting immediately got jobs with one of the Big 10 accounting firms. Friends of mine went off to engineering jobs, and the only marketing company that came in to interview marketing people was Duracell batteries, and they wanted you to stock 7-Elevens on the graveyard shift with Duracell batteries and adjust the displays and stuff over a huge territory.
Wow.
It's like, well, I could have done that without this degree. So I ended up I was having a part-time job alongside the zinc plant at Radio Shack.
Right.
Nobody probably knows what Radio Shack is anymore, but
just us gray hairs.
Yeah, so I did that, and then interviewed for an electrical control sales rep job out of Portland, which had me covering this vast area. My territory was like from Wenatchee to Bozeman. And so I was driving in my little Datsun B210 all over the place.
Whoa, time out. You had a Datsun B210?
Yeah.
That was my first car.
Orange, cream interior.
I had green with cream interior. That is hilarious.
Well, yeah. So, and I think, my base, my commission sales position was $500 a month.
Yeah.
I'm got a wife and 2 kids by this point.
Yeah.
And, commission and this vast area. And I think my per diem to do that was $250.
Wow.
So I would stay at these hotels. They were like $18 a night. And if they had a fridge, you could run and get,
There were more motels probably than hotels, right?
The Thrifty Scotsman in Richland was my favorite. Yeah. So
yeah. Well, we learn a lot in those kind of jobs, I feel. Anyway, I had some similar story, first sales job, rough. But yeah, I learned a lot. I mean,
well, you learn immediately not to try and talk about things you don't know about. And so if a guy, of course, I knew nothing about electrical controls. And so, you get these questions from some cranky old maintenance guy, and he just said, well, I don't know, but I'll get the answer for you. And they would appreciate that rather than trying to, soft shoe it.
Yeah. How long did you stick with that?
Oh, gosh, that was a hard job, probably about a couple of years. And then I applied for the big ad in the Spokane Review. It was like the big ad. It said product administrator for General Instrument. And so, I'd thrown in 10,000 resumes at things. I got the job. It was in Post Falls at their keyboard manufacturing company that was a predecessor of what Keytronic later had been. I got the job, went in there with my little outfit and everything. And there was a company meeting 2 weeks later, and they were closing it and transferring it to Juarez, Mexico.
Oh.
So I was one of a few people that took that transfer. I lived in El Paso, but so much of my job was going across the border to this factory in Juarez and trying to find where my orders were for my customers. So yeah, it was a formative experience as well.
Wow. How old are you around that time?
Oh, I was probably 23.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That's an experience.
Well, right before I left to go to El Paso, I tried for a job at Itron. This was when Itron was still in Post Falls, Idaho. And the guy I worked with got the job. Great guy, John Hengish. He later taught at Whitworth, and he was an executive at Itron. But John brought me back up from El Paso after about a year, and I was one of the early employees at Itron.
Remember what year?
That was, I think the year I joined Itron was probably 1984.
I had a good friend I grew up with named Gary Lewis that worked at Itron.
Gary Lewis. I'm not kidding. This is funny. I met him later at Itron, but he would come into my Radio Shack and buy parts.
Oh, he was a geek. He had his apartment. I lived at Liberty Lake in the inlet, the little, and my mom, a single mom, my senior year, and Gary Lewis lived up right above us. And I knew him from high school. He went to East Valley as well. But I would go into his second bedroom. He had all these electrical gadgets that he was putting together and tinkering with. That's probably why
he never told me what he was working on, but yeah, he was always nice.
Yeah.
So Itron was, by that time it had moved to Sullivan Road and was, started becoming the company that it was, and learned a lot.
Johnny Humphreys running that?
Well, Johnny Humphreys, came in and took over for Paul Smiley, and, I've kept in touch with Johnny over the years, and just a luminary.
Great experience though.
Around here. Yeah. Well, I also connected, so obviously they were in meter reading, but they were creating a new division that would go after other applications. And there was a telecom application where they were basically taking the same handheld units, but using them for technician dispatch for the Bell companies.
Gotcha.
And so I went from John's group over to work for Dave Curry.
Dave Curry.
And that's where I met Dave.
Another great name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Dave's first move out of the box was to have me ride around in Illinois Bell technicians' trucks in January in Chicago. So to learn the job, to learn what their life was, which I kind of got the gist of it after a couple of days. But anyway, that's where I was.
Yeah. Man, you were with some names of folks that go way back in entrepreneur fame in the region. So you
I was very lucky.
Yeah, you got some great. Were they mentors to you? I mean, did you have mentors along the way that you still remember to this day that helped you a lot?
John. And Johnny, and I think our original president, Paul Smiley. I met Klaus Huschke there.
Klaus.
A guy named Steve Gevertz, who was our VP of marketing. Everybody. And then I went over to Dave's group, and
a lot of great humans, just good people that are still, a lot of them around today that are still getting involved in different ways. When we, contact them and say, hey, we'd like you to come speak. Dave Curry always steps up. Klaus has come to some of our stuff. I haven't seen Johnny Humphreys in quite a while, but he used to step in all the time and get involved.
Yeah, Johnny and Dave and I used to do kind of a little talk at Ignite where the people in the groups would ask us what our 10 takeaways were.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of overlap,
Sure.
especially from my point of view, because I learned some of those takeaways from those two guys.
Yeah.
So
that's great. No, that's a great model and something we'll talk about maybe a little bit, but I want to stay focused on kind of your journey, right? People love hearing about other people's journey, especially when you've had success and failure. I mean, quite frankly, this. I mean, we learned a lot from both, right? Can you talk a little bit about, so you're at Itron, you were the founder of Purcell Systems. How did that come about?
Well, so after Itron, I went to what had been ISC Systems and became Olivetti. And it was funny, I went there, well, there's a lesson learned there. I went there for a slightly higher pay because I really needed the pay. And boy, I don't quite know what I accomplished over about 5 years. And that's the point in time I started thinking, I'd like to do something on my own.
Yeah.
So I left Olivetti and started my first business, which was representing. I was kind of high-teched out, and so I started representing gift manufacturers in this area at national gift shows, thinking that whatever I liked, of course, other people would like. Well, that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
So I got out of that without losing too much. Went to a company called Northern Technologies, and that's kind of how Purcell started. So we were in the surge protection business specifically for wireless.
Right.
So that's where I met the two guys who I first started Purcell with.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about Purcell, because that's where I moved back to Spokane from the Bay Area in '99. I met a couple people that we know, both of us know, that were kind of key in this area for investment, getting involved, and just kind of spearheading stuff. And and that's when I started Launchpad, the annual event. I was working for Cisco in 2000, 2001, and we had our first Launchpad event. It was either Launchpad 1 or 2 when Purcell was a sponsor. I think you contributed, and it was either the first one or the second one. I can't remember. The second one was at the Davenport, the Grand Painting thing.
Yeah, no, I remember that.
We celebrated. Man, that was a blast. But what was it like back then in comparison to now, where Launchpad, Ignite? There are some programs now for entrepreneurs if you want to get help, if you want mentoring, or if you want to meet people like yourself that we can introduce and go through a very specific program, our Springboard program, for example, or Tom's Ignite Works program for kind of later stage. Was there anything like that back then?
No. And to the extent that when we started Purcell, I mean, we knew who we wanted to sell to. We had a product. We were all three leaving Northern Technologies at that time. And the concept of going in and talking to a banker, you're not going to give me a loan? Oh, and in fact, if you do, you want me to sign my home onto this? I mean, all that stuff was just insane. And so, to start moving forward, it was hard.
And remind people what Purcell, what your solution was and what problem you were solving.
Well, so what it started out to be, this is one of the ultimate pivots, but we had a power supply that put out both DC and AC current. It was, you could remote monitor the batteries, and we do all kinds of stuff. We were going to sell to the competitive local exchange carriers. So this was back in 2000 where, all these companies were popping up, heavily venture funded, and they were just buying stuff off the rack. And so we came charging out of the gate right about the time that whole industry collapsed. So meanwhile, we've all left our jobs. I think, but we were able to sell those and some power systems. I think the first year's revenue was about $1 million. And then the following year, we were starting to do really well right up until 9/11. So this is 2001. No orders, like for the next little while. And I'm scrambling, trying to find local angels. And it was super duper hard. So, but what happened, I think, at some point, because we were doing some power racks, someone called and said, "You do enclosures?" I said, "Yeah, of course we do." We'd never even, I don't think we've even seen an enclosure.
That's the right answer.
And the answer is always yes. So we scrambled around and did enough enclosures so that we started being able to at least cover our burn rate. But we were in little offices, and actually the very first office was my partner William Miller's daughter's bedroom, who had like a little princess phone, which was our phone. And then if anyone wanted to fax us an order, I quickly had to unplug that line and plug it into a fax machine.
Wow.
And, we kind of got out of that pretty quickly, but that's how it started.
Do you still have the princess phone?
No, well, maybe William does, I'm not sure. But nobody even knows what a phone is anymore.
Oh, yeah.
But, and then we had a real break in 2002. We got a call from VoiceStream, which had been later T-Mobile. And they somehow got in a situation where they absolutely had to have an enclosure with power systems and stuff at this one site. We miraculously did it within a week down in Houston, and got in there. And then so our revenue went from 1.2 up to 12.
Yeah.
The next year it went to 24. And in this period of time, I did end up getting a private equity company to come in, and used investment banking company over in Seattle, Cascadia Capital. So I think Kevin's still running around the area.
Kevin's still here? Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, but
Kevin Cable, for those
Kevin
that don't
Cable.
know.
Yeah, so we were, I think, one of their first clients.
Yeah. This is like early 2000?
So I think
mid-2000?
when we went with Cascadia to get our private equity company, this was probably 2003.
Yeah.
But so what's... Do you want to hear a good story?
Yeah.
So this is a Kevin.
That's why we're here.
Kevin Cable story. So I knew that they wanted to meet with us, and I said, "Well, I'm going to be in Seattle. I'd love to talk to you about what you guys doing." So Kevin said, "Great, meet me at the Starbucks at Carillon Point in Kirkland." So it's like where these beautiful people are.
I've been there.
Well, the reason I went over there was because I had to repossess my oldest son's car because he wasn't paying me, and it was this crappy Ford Escort that backfired, and so I pulled up to the Carillon Point Starbucks, and he had to get out the passenger side because his door was broken. So I crawl out this thing and backfired, and I could just look, and I could see Kevin like lowering his Ray-Bans and looking at me like this can't be the guy. Sure enough, it was. Anyway,
that's great.
So we went.
That's perfect.
We went forward with them, and they did a fantastic job.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you had orders, you had demand for your product, which is such a key thing that we talk to new entrepreneurs about all the time. Tell us about the demand for your solution. First, tell us what problem you're solving. And is there an actual demand? Do you actually have customers that are willing to pay you that you've talked to? And so many entrepreneurs we talk to haven't gotten that far, but they're kind of at the stage where like, we need to raise money so we can create an MVP or a pilot, do a pilot or something. And it's like, hold on, time out. Do you have actual customers that would be interested in your product?
Yeah, and the common problem that we were solving in this was the complete dysfunctionality at the time of large telecom carriers coupled with the demand for data. I used to tell people that this is about the time when people were starting to text photos of things on their phones, and the data rates were skyrocketing, and you could almost see the local cell towers melting and falling over because of this.
Yeah.
So those carriers were behind the eight ball. They absolutely had to get these networks built. And a big part of it was trying to have all the equipment on site so that the electrical inspector would come and sign off on this.
Right.
So we came up with this idea that let's go ahead and get an integrated power cabinet, and then the inspector can sign off on it. And then whenever the radios show up, they can just connect them. It's already been permitted. Yeah. So that sped up their whole deployment really quickly, and just
solving a big problem.
Well, but solving a big problem comes from solving little problems like answering the phone. We answered the phone. We were going up against two really large companies that were competitors and kind of the gold standards in that world of enclosures. And they would, if a customer said, not a small customer, like a T-Mobile said, "Gee, can you move this generator plug to the left side instead of the right side?" Yeah, I know. No, we have our catalog. This is what you get. Whereas we would do that.
You were nimble.
Oh, very nimble, very fast. And we had trademarked this term, fanatical service.
Nice.
But it was really just answering the phone and sending email, things you probably do today that aren't that big of a deal. But, sending acknowledgments, thanking them for the order.
Yeah.
What else can we do?
Yeah. No, that makes a big difference, obviously. So you do that, you start providing solutions for the T-Mobiles and others, and you're growing. Walk us through to the point of the M&A.
Yeah, so it was a little hard because based on the number of carriers, your revenue concentration is pretty thick, at any one. And so, for instance, one year, I think we ended up doing that year about $65 million, but it was also the year that AT&T and Singular merged. So we got out with our $65 million out to around July, and orders just shut off. And not just from AT&T and Singular, but also T-Mobile, because they had roaming agreements with both those carriers, and so no one built anything for the rest of the year. About that moment, we had been working on trying to get an international deal with Ericsson, and it just so happened that about the time that revenue dropped off, Ericsson started ordering stuff from us worldwide, and so we were able to make that jump. So over the years, we kind of plateaued for a bit, about 60, 70 million or so, and then we got a really big deal through Alcatel-Lucent, and that led eventually to when we exited in 2013. We were doing about, I think that year we did about 140 million in revenue.
Nice. Had Alcatel already purchased packet engines by then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they had presence.
Yeah, and that was an interesting deal to where our margin on these products we were pretty lucky to get 25 or 30%, which is kind of skinny. So you can't make too many mistakes, and managing your AP clock versus your AR clock is super important. So the deal with Alcatel was cool in that we were having these fully integrated cabinets produced out of China, and they would arrive eventually from that supplier in Dallas, and then as soon as and that supplier was carrying the paper the entire way. So as soon as Alcatel would pull a cabinet from that facility, their 30-day payable clock to us would start as we were needing them to pay Alcatel. So we were able to make that flip on cash pretty quickly.
Yeah. And then, I was going to ask you about where things were manufactured and assembled. But so like for Ericsson, did you have to custom cabinets? So did each carrier want a different type of cabinet, like with different specs?
Yeah, but I mean, not terribly different. So much of what we did in terms of the cabinets and the thermal management and the power, it was all kind of modular. Yeah. So we were able to kind of move things around and stuff. And it's
that's why you get designers and engineers on the payroll, right?
Oh yeah. Well, and again, we had cool designs, but so much of it had to do with execution. Yeah. In fact, along the way, the only thing that just about killed the company was when we transitioned to SAP. Oh my gosh!
I mean, let's take a time out. I need to take a drink because I'm familiar.
Brutal. Yeah. Absolutely brutal. I mean, we couldn't ship. We couldn't do anything. But we were able to make our way through that. So that was an interesting situation, because the reason we went to SAP was because we had an offer to buy us on the table. This was in 2006 or 7 for $145 million. And so took it to the board, just knowing that they'd approve it. Well, they didn't. They were like, nah. Well, the private equity company had money in us. They weren't ready to get that fund closed yet. And they said, well, and this is the first time I ever knew.
What was your revenue at that time? Do you remember?
Yeah, I was probably in the 90s or so.
So maybe not quite double.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but they really saw the value, and we fit really well into a lot of other things that they were doing.
Sure.
So we turned the deal down, but that was after we'd signed the agreement with SAP to go forward. So it was a rough year.
So you had an offer. Remind me who the offer was from again?
It's from ADC Wireless, which later got bought by CommScope.
Gotcha. And so your board turned it down.
Turned it down, encouraging me to try and drive this to a higher level. Yeah. I said, guys, I don't know how much further this is going to go without major product development or more international business.
Sure. Yeah. So take us through to when you finally did have an acquisition.
Yeah, it was, again, kind of a relatively low margin business. So the more price pressure came down with big deals like through Ericsson and Alcatel, your EBITDA was a little skinny. So we never got to a point of an EBITDA multiplier. And it really was just, I think potential acquirers started to see the enclosure business as being a vehicle to put more things into. So, and that's kind of eventually what happened. We were purchased by Enersys Batteries out of Pennsylvania, a big battery manufacturer, with the idea that that would allow them to sell more batteries, which in hindsight was not really the case because it was a system. And I don't think that people really understood the value that Purcell brought by getting people to be able to get their networks installed on time. Didn't have an awful lot to do with the cabinet technology.
What would you say are the most important lessons you learned from the Purcell experience, that whole experience from the start to the exit and when you finally left and, were off to something else?
Well, by lessons learned, these are problems identified because I still don't know if I have the answers to them. But one issue is we grew, it's funny, we used to always talk about having a sense of urgency because that's what allowed us to really run circles around our competition. Well, as you're growing, you start to have to apply process because, if the room's on fire, everyone tries to get out the door with a sense of urgency, everyone's going to die. So you have to start doing that. And when we were first with T-Mobile shipping out the doors in the fall of, I think, 2002, we decided to go down through a lean manufacturing process. And it was alarming because they had to do this process walk, where they called it a spaghetti walk, because when you stand back and look at what you thought were good processes, it looks like a big pile of spaghetti. So our consultant at the time, actually a local guy, Chris Wood, had us take everything outside, and it's getting pretty cold and rainy out. And our salesman for T-Mobile was freaking out because we knew we had to get this stuff out by the end of the year. And so we did the revised lean processes, taped off the floors, brought everything back in that we needed for those processes, and that left a bunch of stuff outside that we didn't need, that we had paid for. So we had some fire sales with that kind of stuff. But so lean was important for us. The other issue as we were going forward was hiring to our culture, because you're trying to grow and you're trying to get the very best talent you can. But if there's a cultural mismatch and they just don't understand the entrepreneurial spirit, or they don't understand, the basic issue. Well, to coin something that Dave Curry taught me, there's only two departments at a company. There's sales and there's sales support. And as the CEO, I might go out and sell sometime. The rest of the job, the rest of my time is sales support. And so there are a lot of people you brought in that would get hung up on a piece of documentation or some process that did not eventually lead to the customer, being satisfied. Yeah.
Well, that's a great way to frame it. Sales or sales support. And it's tough too, because you want everyone else in the company to feel appreciated, even though they have different roles that may or may not be directly involved with sales. But either way, it's sales support.
Well, and to go along with that, I think we were always very open about sharing information with employees. So, we get up and we do our monthly or quarterly, employee meeting. I had no problem showing them every single number up there, good or bad. So that was good. Hiring, especially at the executive level, I thought I would, being a marketing major, you take a lot of psychology classes. I thought I was a really good judge of people. And you'd interview somebody, and then you liked them, and you'd promote them to the board, get the board approval, hire them, and then 2 weeks later, they start showing egomaniacal tendencies that nobody saw during the process. So it was tough, and that's why I still don't quite have a magic pill for it.
It is a tough one. I think I agree with you. That's a tough one. I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs and former colleagues, folks at tech companies that they do. I worked at Google, and it was a brutal hiring process. Thankfully for me, they lowered their standards and allowed me to join the team. But it was rough. I mean, they really, you could tell they had a specific process because they wanted a culture fit. And I think a lot of those companies that don't focus on culture fit struggle. Yeah, I think you're right. That's a great lesson. So you have a exit. Did you stick around for? Was there a contractual requirement for you to stick around for a while?
No, and in fact, I thought it was best that I left.
Okay.
Because the private equity company brought in a guy to kind of take it through the sale process.
Yeah.
One of these guys that does that for a living, and that's I just didn't want to be around, for that part of it. So, but very supportive of it,
Sure.
and everything there.
And so what was your next next move?
Well, when I left, I didn't really know the company was going to sell. I mean, there was all kinds of issues going on in the industry, and margins were dropping and things like that. So I didn't know it was going to sell. So I thought, okay, I left this company. You're only on the A list for about a year, before people start forgetting who you are and lose your number. So I kind of dove into some things I probably shouldn't have dove into, under the idea that, well, I was a successful, at this,
Right.
I must be able to be successful at that.
Oh, yeah.
And that's not the case at all.
Yeah.
You need to kind of, in my opinion, you need to kind of stick to what you know
Right.
and are comfort, have confidence in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I know you won an award with Ernst & Young, right? Entrepreneur of the Year. That was a pretty amazing award.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Well, and then I got to be a judge for that program later
Yeah.
on, and it was an amazing experience. To see all these companies come in and encouraging. When you see disappointing business news stories, just take a look at the entrepreneurial world. At those Ernst & Young events, and it's just incredible.
Yeah, yeah.
My favorite one was a company called Tap Handles. And this is when microbrews were first starting to come out.
Oh.
And this guy did custom tap handles.
Sure.
And they were doing like $30 million in revenue.
Wow.
And, can you imagine all the different, starts with companies like Deschutes and,
Sure.
Sam Adams and stuff, but it was fascinating.
So did you, how much time between that and your latest company, which we want to talk about, Easy Street?
Well, in between Purcell and Easy Street, again, I thought I could do something different, and it did work out. I got involved with the program through U.S. Citizenship and Immigration called EB-5, and it's a program where you can raise foreign capital for projects that create U.S. jobs. And if they do, then the person who has the foreign capital gets a slightly faster, visa into the country. So it was kind of a cool program. I initially wanted to use it for projects around Spokane. That didn't shake out. I ended up doing some projects in Seattle, and it all actually worked. But immigration is a difficult world.
Yeah.
And even that good program kind of got pulled into some of the controversies we face today.
Gotcha.
So, and then I reconnected with a guy who had been my head of product development and engineering at Purcell, Kent Harrison, and he and I started talking about what we were going to do next in the world of telecom.
Is that what kind of led you to Easy Street?
Yeah. Well, Kent's background was interesting, and this is a good story about how you hire good people. Kent had run the West region for AT&T Wireless for
There's Kent.
14 Western states.
Yeah.
And had 3,500 employees, multi-billion-dollar budget, and he ended up on the board of Relion.
Okay.
Which was right next to Purcell.
Yeah.
And so, but he's a Spokane guy. Went to Rogers High School, and Hilliard guy.
Yeah.
Which I tease him about constantly.
Hey, I grew up in Hilliard. So I was about 11, so easy.
Yeah, no, I came off my perch on the South Hill and ended up living in Hilliard for many years. So it's
My perch.
I like it.
Yeah.
But anyway, Kent had a wonderful background, and he had an opportunity to continue on with what had become the AT&T Singular machine, and decided instead to take a package and come to Spokane. Went on the board of Relion, and he, I think, was on a lunch break, wandered into Purcell because he saw us next door, and he remembered that they had bought a lot of Purcell cabinets, and I think for the fun of it, filled out a job application.
That's great.
Like as a tech. So my HR person comes running to me with this resume that's attached to the job application. So hired him the next day to head up engineering and product development, and we've kind of been together ever since.
Awesome.
So we started looking at a problem we saw in the industry. So as data needs increase, exponentially, and these applications that require almost zero latency in terms of their ability to communicate, everything starts moving to the edge. So it's data centers as well. I mean, there's a lot of edge data centers. The same with cell towers. So you can only have so many 150-foot cell towers. And so small cells is an area where we thought there was an opportunity because the cost of putting in a small cell was so heavy on the civil side.
Mm-hmm.
So the digging the hole, putting it in the ground, concrete, steel, all that kind of stuff, shutting it down streets. So we thought about making a lightweight one, and we ended up going down the path, and here we are today. We have a composite tower that weighs about 15% of steel. Yeah, and it goes in with 2 guys in 2 hours, and it just drastically reduces that civil cost.
And so, aside from the lightweight nature of it, the material, what problem would you say you're solving?
Well, and the recent problem we're solving is that it is composite, and there are no tariffs on it, like steel. So we're getting calls all the time now with people, who were using steel towers. They just can't get them, and the price is skyrocketing.
Yeah.
So there's that. It's also, and my team hates it when I say this, but it's basically a composite, lightweight, strong as steel, and it stands up into hurricane winds in Florida, but it's hollow. And so in the ability to integrate things into it now are very much like the cabinet business. Yeah. So I always say it's like a tall, skinny cabinet. And so that's kind of what we're doing. We couple it with a product we found from the utility industry. It's a 2-part foam that you mix and pour into the hole, and that's your foundation. And you can start setting equipment in 20 minutes. So there's this big cost justification. But part of our issue was we, being 2 old telecom guys, we went after the old telecom market. And the old telecom market these days is having a lot of issues, just in terms of permitting and getting, just being able to slog through the ability to even put in small cell towers. It's interesting. People always say, well, China is so far ahead of us in 5G. Like, well, that's because they don't worry about permits. Of course they can, the carriers can do anything they want to over there. So we're right now in the last year or so into a pivot towards private networks. An example of which is like a new real estate development to where they, those residents, especially post-COVID, want the latest broadband, they want lighting, they want sensors that tell them everything from, the license plate recognition, gunshot detection, sadly enough, weather monitoring, everything, college campuses. So in those private networks, you kind of sidestep that whole permitting process because it's an encapsulated ecosystem.
Yeah, so many of those features people want now are really required at the edge. Like you were saying, I was running into that in the cloud business where so many of those features now need to be pushed out.
Yeah, and one thing that we're working on is pretty interesting now too. Can't really say much about the names of the companies, but we've been approached about a project to basically intercept drones coming across the southern border. And I didn't know this, but evidently the cartels have been sending drones with fentanyl across the border, and so this side of our wall, whatever wall may exist or not, there's an air wall, and this is being considered by a ton of countries. We read about drones every day in the news and putting up these air walls, and the air walls consist of a tower that needs to go into some very harsh environments quickly with minimal labor. So that points right to Easy Street.
And you can add all these different features to the tower. It's got all those capabilities.
Yeah.
So what are there? Let's talk about any patents that you can talk about.
Yeah. We know that composite has been used in lighting before, but I didn't think anyone. Well, we just took a shot at it. Said, hey, I wonder if we can get a patent on small cell use of composites, and sure enough, we ran it through the whole system, and we got an issued patent out there for that.
Great. Yeah, it really is interesting how many different services you guys can talk about that can be added to the tower. It's not only is it lightweight in the composite part of it, 2 people can install it, but you can add quite a bit more to it, which is really
and it changes country to country. So we have an office in London, and rules there for right-of-way and utility participation, things like that, allow us to be able to put kind of the guts of an EV charger into the base of this thing too.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But it's kind of, everyone, the need for data, if you take it all the way back to that, driving this industry, it's a worldwide problem with we hope this to be a worldwide solution.
So talk about, so you're headquartered in Spokane,
Mhm.
and you have a team here. You have you have folks assembling, but you also have some support folks here as well.
We're a pretty small crew.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. Like if I contrast this with Purcell, yeah, it was very a mechanical heavy product, and so we hired all kinds of MEs.
Mhm.
Well, nowadays you can hire MEs, on contract on a
Right.
project by project basis. And all these things. Well, something as simple as a phone system.
Mhm.
That was a big expense when I first started.
That's right.
Purcell was having a phone system. Nobody
Mhm.
has it anymore. Um, outsourced marketing, a lot of things like that. So we're a relatively small team here. We're going to, I hope, grow exponentially. We did. We were purchased in April by a large distributor associated with the cable business. Cable meaning like Comcast,
Mhm.
Charter,
Mhm.
people like that, based out of Denver,
Mhm.
called Digicom International.
Okay.
And so they're a kind of a parent company to us, but giving us a lot of financial backing. And
Gotcha. What were some of the products that they specialized in? What was the complement?
well, they had a really interesting model. They, and being an ex Cisco guy, you'll appreciate this, where the original business model had been to go out and buy up products that had been discontinued, but were still very much in use,
Hmm.
and stock them in their warehouse. And they did a just fantastic business doing that. But being cable centric, they wanted to get into wireless, and so they've taken on a couple different wireless radio manufacturers.
Okay.
A really interesting product from Google X that does point-to-point optical transport to hopefully replace certain sections of fiber. So all of those things, complement our product as well.
Yeah, great. So you have a team in Spokane. Do you have anybody else either across the country or in any other cities?
Boy, we tried that,
Yeah.
and it's hard, and
Yeah.
it can go either way on the whole. Be at work or work remotely. I mean, even our local employees, if they want to work from home for a day, that's totally fine.
Sure.
We're pretty flexible about that, but you just miss the whole camaraderie, that's
Yeah.
involved
Yeah.
there too. And I also have become a real believer in staffing up our own sales folks, because you can try selling hiring rep firms and distributors, but it just doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, things have changed quite a bit since you started Purcell. What are some things you think you would like to see? I don't know how much you know about Launchpad and Springboard. I think you know a little bit, but what are some things you'd like to see in the region to support folks like yourself that have ideas? Obviously, we can talk about capital, but what are some of the services you think that would be really helpful to generate more entrepreneurism and more growth in the startup community?
Well, one area I think that always needs to be emphasized it always seems like it isn't. It's just kind of a box to check is sales. So early on, I shifted from being a marketing product manager, where I kind of did sales, but I didn't get any commission, to being a sales guy, and exact same job. But I started getting commission. And so as part of that, this was at Northern Technologies. We were all forced to take strategic selling. It's and there's a number of different programs out there like that, but it teaches you really the nuts and bolts of selling. And a lot of times when I hear young entrepreneurs especially talk about their product and their customer, and there's the predictable hockey stick in revenue.
Yeah.
I start asking them questions like, well, who's the technical buyer, who's the economic buyer, who's your coach? I mean, all this kind of
Crickets.
stuff. And yeah, well, and they'll ask them who this customer is. Oh,
Yeah.
so and so. Well,
Yeah.
how do you know you're going to get this order?
That's right.
Well, the chief engineer, told us so. He says it's the best thing he's ever seen since
But he's
sliced
not the
bread.
decision maker.
Well, I said, so what's his budget?
Yeah.
Oh, he doesn't have a budget.
Right.
Oh, well, then you're not going to
Yeah.
get the order anytime soon.
That's so true. I've been through a number of those strategic selling programs, and that is so critical. It's so true.
Well,
Yeah.
there were two programs. There was strategic selling that kind of laid out the whole
Mhm.
strategy of going after the big account. And then there was one called conceptual selling, and that was for the actual sales call you made. So you had your list of questions, and some of those questions are kind of, especially if someone's shy, it's hard to ask those. So one of those is finding out what the person's personal win is.
Personal win.
Personal
I love that
win.
one. I love that
I
one.
used to call it. In fact, I used to list this on my list of things. I called it the Clark Griswold effect.
Yep.
because Clark Griswold didn't really care about making food additives. He didn't really care about the company or any of that stuff. He cared about the pool.
That's right.
For the kids.
That's
and
right.
The only way he was going to get that is if he got the bonus.
Yeah.
And so in talking to, let's say someone, guy at T-Mobile, you talk to an engineer, he loves your stuff. Well, he's got no personal attachment to it, but a construction manager who is bonused on being able to get that site out and done faster than anybody else will get his bonus and his pool.
You got to find out his win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's hard, again, that's a hard set of questions to go through. But
once I was taught, I did learn that through strategic selling, through the blue sheet and the whole thing. I credit that with so many deals because everybody thinks you go in right away, especially newbies. You go in right away and I got to ask for the order. I got to find out just cookie cutter questions. But the personal win, I'd say by far, is probably the greatest thing I've ever learned in sales, was that getting to the win, getting to the why they're really driven, and whether it's a bonus, whether it's how they're viewed in the company for growth, so many different reasons why people buy that are in those buying positions.
Oh yeah, to an extreme. One time there was a guy I worked with he was like the Herb, nobody knows who Herb Tarlick is anymore, but
I do. WKRP.
WKRP. This guy was the salesman of all time. And I remember walking by his desk one time, and Sprint was one of his accounts. On his desk, there's a book on woodworking. I was like, "Oh, hey, when'd you get into woodworking?" I'm not really into it. Well, what's with the book? He goes, "Well, the guy I'm calling on is really into woodworking."
Yeah.
And so I brought it up. He'd learned enough from glancing at the book to bring this up in a conversation.
That's
the guy
right.
goes, "Oh my God, you want to come over to my house and look at my shop?" Well, then all of a sudden he's staying for dinner with his family and stuff. Well,
Yeah.
This guy became a huge customer of his at some point.
It's called a relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, real quick. Biggest account I ever had up to this time, I was with Cabletron, got promoted to outside sales in the Bay Area. I'd only talked to this guy on the phone, global network manager for Applied Materials. And I walk into his office, we talk for 5 minutes, and I see all these football pictures, youth football pictures. And he didn't have any boys. And so I finally stopped the meeting with my boss next to me. I said, "Can I ask you a question? What's going on with the football pictures?" I coach Pop Warner football. For how long? 10 years, Sunnyvale Micro Rockets. Really? Tell me more. He goes, "Why?" I go, "I played football all the way through high school. I played it in Greece in the military. I love football." He goes, "Really?" He goes, "We're looking for a receiver coach." I signed up right there on the spot. I became their receiver coach. We practiced 4 times a week. We went to 2 national championships in Orlando, and we hung out all the time. And he was my global manager. Guess who worked on that account for 5 years? So it was the reason I started understanding personal win. And it was a natural relationship. It wasn't something forced. That's the other trick, right? You can talk to people and you can teach young salespeople about personal win, whether it's through the blue sheet process or whatever. But it's also got to be natural and authentic, right? It can't be those fake questions like, "Oh, I see you like to paint. I'm a painter." And, I think people can see through that, right? You got to really learn.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, and in those questions, back and forth too, always trying to ask them like, what, we're talking about this particular issue right now, and hopefully my product will be able to help you out. What other pain points do you have?
Yeah.
You just don't know if there's something adjacent, because at Purcell, we did a really good job of kind of moving into more and more things we could integrate, because on the metal side itself, the margin was low.
Yeah.
And we would be lucky to get 15%, but by the time you did the air conditioner and, the cabling, all that kind of stuff, it brought it back up to something you could run a company on.
Yeah. So we're probably kind of winding this down, but what would you like to share with other entrepreneurs, people that maybe this is their first company that they're starting, or really early on and they're struggling a little bit, and some people are telling them to pivot, other people are telling them to just fold it up. Do you have any words of encouragement or maybe advice for people that are just kind of starting out and maybe this is their first or second company?
Yeah, I mean, if you believe most of your story, I can't fathom folding it up. There's always a way out. And, again, I think this is something I shared with with Dave and Johnny was just perseverance.
Mm-hmm.
Just, every day there's something that's going to happen you can look at it two different ways. You can just kind of either get through it or not. So perseverance, if you believe in your idea, is just incredibly important. And if you could persevere long enough to have luck turn in your favor,
Mm-hmm.
then you will get a break at some point.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to work out fine.
Yeah.
But people do tend to get down, especially if their original idea isn't exactly what it was.
Yeah.
In fact, I really wonder. So I was telling you before the podcast, I listened to How I Built This
Mm-hmm.
with Guy Raz, and pretty rare that the original idea is the one that eventually,
Mm-hmm.
comes all the way through. So, don't get discouraged about that.
Yeah. That's good
Keep
advice.
moving forward.
Yeah, and don't be afraid to listen to people like yourself or other people that have some experience that are just there to offer some advice.
And be very careful about who you choose as your financial partners. And I know that there's times where you're just dying to get going. But, it's like hiring people. They're pretty easy to hire. They're awfully hard to fire.
Mm-hmm.
And so same, except 10 times as much with people you bring on to be, helping you on the financial side.
Yeah, it looks nice on Shark Tank, but once you get into bed with them, you got to remember that money comes with a lot of strings, right? Well, it's been great having you. Is there any final thoughts that you want to share or anything?
No, just congratulations on what you're doing here. And again, what's happening in Spokane. I would have loved if this had been the case when I first started. It's heading in the right direction. And like anybody else who has had, ups and downs, I'd certainly be happy to offer my thoughts for anyone out there who's looking for, a little advice.
Yeah, it's so valuable, and we appreciate you and what you've done in Spokane. I mean, you've been an inspiration, I think, to a lot of people around here, and we're just glad you're still grinding and doing your thing. That's important for the community, that people see you and Dave Curry and Tom Simpson and all these people that are part of the ecosystem. It's really critical, and we just want to help bring all those folks together and help nurture a lot of startups, giving them the tools that they need to succeed and just grow this ecosystem more and more every day.
Well, so one last thing about that is kind of interesting. I thought about the joke I made about the grade point average, but I remember a local college, not to name names here, but they had a program where they were really trying to attract people into their entrepreneurial program. And the person at the time was saying, we really want to attract those 3.8, 3.9 people. And it's like, and those guys kind of know what they're doing, and they have a path. You want the 2.3, 2.2 people where you don't quite know what you're going to do.
Yeah.
And so much innovation and so much perseverance, everything is driven out of, panic because you don't know what you're going to do. So you better come up with something. And that's where you find your entrepreneurs.
And maybe they're hungrier.
Oh, for sure.
Maybe they're just fighters and grinders, and they're the people that aren't going to just give up so easily.
Well, every kid thinks that they're going to, if you have a business bent, you're going to end up in the corner office. And, after about year 10, you're not only you're not in the corner office, you're in the basement.
Yeah.
You start thinking, I've got to do something different.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do whatever it takes to change things.
I think that's a great point. I really do. I like that a lot. I was that barely just under 3-point student that just didn't love school, but I wanted to get into business. I wanted to do something. So I think that's great advice. Yeah, I appreciate that. Well, best of luck to you. I love what you're doing. I'm a huge fan of you personally. You've always been very fair to people and always accessible, and I really appreciate that.
Well, thanks.
And,
This has been fun.
Absolutely. Pete Chase, thank you.